For 6 months, he paid his maid to pretend to be his wife, until a twist changed everything. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It is quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let us return to our main character. The night inside the Hale penthouse was unusually silent, the kind of silence that made the city below feel miles away. Adrian Hale, the 34-year-old millionaire with a spotless public image and a private life wrapped in steel, sat behind his polished desk. His office lights were dimmed, leaving only a warm desk lamp shining over a thick contract and a small velvet box that held a simple gold band. It was not a symbol of love, it was a symbol of necessity. Across from him stood Elena Ward, the maid who had spent the past months cleaning these same floors, without ever imagining she would be summoned here for anything more than extra tasks. Her hands were still red from scrubbing marble earlier, but now they trembled for a very different reason. Adrian pushed the contract toward her with a controlled gesture. "Elena," he said, his voice steady, "I need you to pretend to be my wife. For 6 months." The world seemed to stop. Elena stared at him, confused, unsure if she had heard correctly. Adrian Hale did not joke. Adrian Hale did not speak in riddles. "I am sorry, sir," she whispered. "You want me to pretend to be your wife?" "Yes," he said. "This is a business arrangement. There is a detailed compensation plan inside the contract. It will cover your mother's ongoing medical expenses, your overdue rent, and provide you with financial security throughout the duration of the agreement." Her breath caught. She had kept those struggles hidden, yet somehow he knew. She felt the room tilt slightly, not because of dizziness, but because the world she knew was shifting under her feet. She looked down at the pages. The rules were clear. She would live in a guest suite next to his. She would attend 5 major public events as his wife. She would follow the guidance of his public relations team. She would not fall in love, nor expect anything beyond the contract. At the end of 6 months, she would walk away quietly. A fake wife, a temporary life, a salvation wrapped in humiliation. Elena lifted her eyes. "Why me? You could choose anyone." Adrian's expression did not change. "Because you are private. You do not seek attention. You do not have ties that can be exploited. And you are predictable. I need someone who can follow rules." Predictable, invisible, replaceable. The words hurt more than she expected. But her mother needed treatment. Her landlord needed payment. Her life needed something, anything, to keep it from collapsing. Adrian watched her silently, waiting. His face was unreadable, but there was something in his eyes, something faint and unspoken, that suggested this was not as simple for him as he tried to make it sound. Elena swallowed hard. Her hand shook as she reached for the pen that lay beside the contract. She felt her heartbeat echo inside her wrists as she signed her name at the bottom of the page. When she finished, Adrian closed the contract with a soft, final sound. "From this moment forward," he said, "your role changes, and neither of our lives will look the same." Elena exhaled, realizing her world had just been rewritten in ink. What she could not know was that the line she had agreed to stay behind would start to blur long before the 6 months were over. Elena barely slept that night. The contract she had signed lay on the small table beside her bed, its pages so still and silent that it almost felt alive, as if it were watching her and waiting for her to accept what she had done. Every time she closed her eyes, she pictured her mother lying in a hospital room, frail and fighting. That image alone was enough to keep her awake. When dawn finally touched the edges of the penthouse, she rose quietly. The world outside was still dark, and the city lights blinked like distant stars. She wrapped her arms around herself, feeling the cold settle into her bones. Even during all her hardest years, she had never imagined she would wake up as the contracted wife of Adrian Hale, a man so far removed from her world that they might as well have lived on different planets. A soft vibration from her phone broke the silence. It was a message from the hospital billing department. The reminder was polite, but the urgency was sharp enough to feel like a blade. Payment was expected soon, very soon. Elena sank onto the edge of her bed and pressed her forehead into her palms. She had convinced herself that accepting the contract was a choice, but here, in the quiet of morning, she finally admitted the truth. It had never been a choice. It had been survival. Downstairs, Marla, the older housekeeper who had a gentle heart and a sharper intuition than most people, found Elena in the kitchen later that morning. Elena was staring at a cup of coffee she had not touched. "You look like you did not sleep at all," Marla said softly. Elena forced a smile that did not quite reach her eyes. "I'm all right, just tired." Marla followed her gaze to the untouched coffee, then to the faint tremble in her hands. "Sweetheart," she said, lowering her voice, "whatever Mr. Hale asked of you last night, be careful. Men like him do not make requests without reason." Elena's chest tightened. "I know, Marla, but sometimes life does not let you walk away." Marla hesitated, then stepped closer. "Just remember who you are. Money can change many things, but do not let it change your heart." Elena nodded, though her throat felt tight. A moment later, Lydia appeared in the doorway, holding a digital tablet and wearing her usual, perfectly composed expression. "Miss Ward," she said, "Mr. Hale would like to speak with you in his study." Elena's pulse quickened. She followed Lydia down the long hallway, each step echoing like a ticking clock counting down to her new life. The study door was half open, and she could see Adrian standing near the tall window, the morning light drawing sharp lines across his face. He did not turn when she entered, but his voice carried a firm calm. "Starting today, your schedule will change," he said. "There are preparations to complete before we make our first public appearance. Lydia will guide you." Elena clasped her hands together. "Yes, sir." Adrian finally turned to look at her, his gaze steady but unreadable. "This agreement benefits both of us, Elena. You will have the financial support you need, and I will have the stability required for the next phase of my work." She understood the words. She even understood the logic, but standing there, in the quiet weight of his presence, she realized something else. This arrangement was much larger than anything she had ever faced. She was stepping into a world built on precision, power, and expectations she did not yet understand. Adrian held her gaze for a brief moment before speaking again. "Prepare yourself. 6 months is not a long time, but it is long enough for mistakes to become costly." Elena nodded, her heartbeat steady but heavy. She had signed the contract to save her mother, but now she was beginning to realize that saving her mother was only the beginning. These 6 months would test who she was, what she feared, and what she believed she could endure. And her new life was only just beginning. Elena stood outside Adrian Hale's study, her palms damp as she waited for Lydia to signal her inside. The events of the past 24 hours felt unreal, as if she were walking through a life that did not belong to her. Yet everything was painfully real. The contract, the expectations, the looming 6 months that would reshape her world. Lydia pushed the door open. "You may go in now." Adrian was seated behind his desk, the same folder from last night placed neatly before him. He did not greet her with a smile or any warmth. That was not who he was. Instead, he motioned toward the chair across from him. "Elena," he said, "we need to finalize the conditions of our agreement. There must be no misunderstandings." She sat slowly, feeling the weight of every word even before he spoke them. The desk lamp cast a sharp line of light across the papers, making the ink appear darker, more permanent. Adrian opened the folder. "There are 5 primary terms. I will read each one. You will confirm you understand." She nodded, her fingers laced tightly in her lap. "Term 1, he began. "We will maintain separate bedrooms. Privacy will be respected at all times." Term 2, "You will accompany me to 5 major public events as my wife. These events are essential for my negotiations with investors and board members." Term 3, "You may not disclose any details about this arrangement to anyone. That includes staff, family, and any outside party." Term 4, "You will follow guidance from the public relations team and stylists to maintain a consistent public image." Term 5, "Emotional involvement is strictly prohibited. This is a contractual partnership, nothing more." Each rule landed with a cold finality. Elena felt as though her life was being redrawn by someone else's hand, line by line, without her input. But she understood why these boundaries existed. They protected him, and in some ways, they protected her. Adrian looked at her directly, his eyes steady. "If you violate any of these terms, the contract ends immediately. The financial support ends with it." Elena inhaled slowly. "I understand, Mr. Hale." He studied her for a moment, as if evaluating the truth behind her words. This arrangement will require discipline, Elena. You are stepping into a public role. If you make mistakes, others will not hesitate to exploit them. She lowered her gaze. I will do my best. Adrian closed the folder with a soft click. You will begin preparing today. Lydia will coordinate your schedule with the necessary teams. There is much to learn and very little time. Elena felt her heart pound. She had always been a maid, moving quietly in the background, unnoticed. Now she was being shaped into the wife of a billionaire, even if only by contract. The shift was overwhelming. Adrian slid a pen across the desk. Sign here. This acknowledges that you understand and accept all terms. Her hand trembled slightly as she reached for the pen. She could feel Adrian's gaze, firm and watchful, as she wrote her name in careful strokes. When she placed the pen down, there was no going back. Adrian folded the papers and locked them in his drawer. Very well. From this moment on, you will conduct yourself accordingly. Appearances matter, Elena, more than you may realize. She rose from her chair, a small knot forming in her throat. Yes, sir. As she stepped out of the study, she felt the invisible boundary of her old life fall away behind her. Ahead lay a world she did not know how to navigate, a world filled with expectations, scrutiny, and an agreement she had to honor without fail. 6 months. It sounded simple on paper, but Elena already sensed that nothing about this arrangement would be simple at all. The next morning began before Elena had even gathered her thoughts from the night before. Lydia arrived at her door carrying a digital tablet filled with schedules, notes, and names Elena had never heard before. There was no gentle transition into this new life. Everything moved with the sharp efficiency of the world Adrian Hale belonged to. Ms. Ward, Lydia said, your training begins in 10 minutes. You will need to be ready. Elena nodded, smoothing the front of her simple blouse. She was still wearing the clothes of a maid, but today she would step into a role that required much more than cleaning or keeping quiet. Today, she would begin transforming into the woman the world needed to believe she was. The first team arrived quickly. 3 stylists, 2 tailors, and a makeup specialist entered her suite with rolling racks of clothing and cases filled with tools and palettes. They assessed her with quick, professional glances. It felt as if they were studying her the way artists examine a blank canvas. A stylist named Harper stepped forward. Do not be nervous, she said. We are here to help you become the public image Mr. Hale requires. Think of this as preparation, not change. Elena nodded, though her heart beat faster with every minute. Harper lifted several dresses for her to see. Deep navy satin, soft cream silk, a stunning black gown that shimmered faintly under the light. Elena touched the edge of the fabric, surprised by its softness. These will be for formal events, Harper said. We will adjust them once we see how you move in them. After the wardrobe fitting came etiquette training. Mr. Cornwall, a tall man with an intimidating calmness, guided her through the fundamentals of high society presence. How to stand without appearing nervous, how to walk with balance and grace, how to shake hands, greet donors, and smile for photographers in a way that looks sincere but composed. Posture, he reminded. Relax your shoulders. Your smile must not look forced. Think warmth, not fear. Elena practiced for hours. She lifted her chin when walking. She balanced in heels she had never worn before. She learned how to sit with elegance, how to hold a champagne flute without leaving prints, and how to turn her head slightly when speaking so that cameras caught her best angle. By afternoon, her feet were sore and her mind was overwhelmed. Every movement felt like a test she could not fail. While practicing a walk in the hallway, her ankle wobbled on the polished floor. She gasped as she lost balance, bracing for a fall, but strong hands steadied her before she hit the ground. Adrian. He had come around the corner at the exact moment she stumbled. His grip was firm around her arm, holding her upright. Elena, he said, his voice low but controlled. If you injure yourself, this arrangement becomes far more complicated. His words were matter of fact, yet the way he continued to hold her for another second told a different story. A story of instinct rather than obligation. I am sorry, she said softly. I will be more careful. He released her slowly. See that you are. The world you are stepping into does not tolerate missteps, even small ones. With that, he continued down the hall, leaving Elena standing there, her heartbeat unsteady from more than just the stumble. She watched him disappear around the corner, realizing something unsettling. She had entered this agreement out of necessity, but now, as she stood in heels she could barely walk in, wearing a dress that felt nothing like her life, she sensed a shift beginning, a shift inside herself, a shift inside him. 6 months. It sounded straightforward in the contract, but the reality was already becoming far more complicated. 2 days later, Elena faced the kind of evening she had never imagined in her life. The Hale Foundation Charity Gala was one of the largest events of the season, a place where donors, executives, and elite families gathered under chandeliers worth more than her entire apartment building. Tonight would be her first appearance as the wife of Adrian Hale. She stood in the penthouse hallway while Harper adjusted the final clasp of her navy satin gown. The mirror reflected a woman who did not look like a maid anymore. Her hair was elegantly swept back, her makeup soft but luminous, her posture taller than she felt. The transformation was undeniable. Harper stepped back. Remember your training. Move with intention. Smile with grace. Elena nodded, though inside she felt a storm of nerves. When Adrian approached, dressed in a sharp black suit, she felt her breath catch. His presence filled the hallway effortlessly. He paused as he looked at her, his expression unreadable, but something in his eyes softened for a brief second. "You look appropriate," he said simply. It was not flattery, but coming from Adrian, it was almost praise. They left for the gala in a sleek black car. Elena sat quietly, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. Adrian glanced at her only once. "Stay close to me," he instructed. "I will handle conversations. You will smile, respond briefly, and maintain composure. That is all that is required." "Yes, Mr. Hale." When they arrived, cameras flashed instantly. The noise of photographers calling Adrian's name echoed across the entrance. Elena felt dizzy, but Adrian moved with confidence, placing a hand lightly at her back to guide her forward. The touch was firm, steady, grounding. Inside the ballroom, golden light illuminated crystal glasses and formal gowns. People turned as they entered, whispers flowing like a soft tide. "That is Adrian Hale's wife? I heard she came out of nowhere. She seems ordinary." Most comments were subtle, polite enough to avoid confrontation, but one voice cut through with sharper edges. A woman with diamond earrings and a practiced smile stepped forward. "My goodness, Adrian," she said sweetly, "you certainly surprised us. I did not know your wife had such humble charm." Elena felt her chest tighten. She recognized the tone. It was not admiration. It was dismissal wrapped in silk. Adrian's jaw tensed, but before he could respond, Elena remembered Mr. Cornwall's words. Warmth, not fear. She smiled gently. "Thank you. It has been a meaningful transition, and I am learning a great deal. I appreciate everyone's kindness tonight." The woman blinked, taken aback. Her expression flickered. Guests nearby nodded approvingly at Elena's calmness. Adrian looked at her, the edge in his eyes easing. For the first time, she sensed something like respect. As the night continued, she walked beside him through conversations, photographs, and introductions. She spoke when needed, listened carefully, and carried herself with the grace she had practiced. By the time they returned to the car, Adrian glanced at her once more. "You did well," he said quietly. "Better than expected." A small warmth bloomed in Elena's chest. This was only one evening, but it was a test she had passed. She looked out the window as the city lights drifted by, feeling something shift inside her. For 6 months, she had to play a role. But tonight, for the first time, she wondered if she was no longer playing it at all. The ride back from the gala was quiet, the kind of quiet that felt different from the silence Elena usually associated with Adrian. Tonight, it was not cold, it was thoughtful. She sat beside him in the back seat, trying to steady the lingering rush of nerves and triumph still pulsing through her. Adrian glanced at her once, his expression unreadable in the dim interior light. "You handled yourself well," he said. People responded positively. Elena looked down at her hands folded on her lap. "I just tried to remember everything Mr. Cornwall taught me." "It was more than that," Adrian replied. "You carried yourself with confidence. You made an impression." Something in her chest warmed. though she did not know what to do with the feeling. When they arrived at the penthouse, Lydia and the remaining staff had already left for the night. The silence inside the vast living room felt softer than usual. Elena removed her heels, grateful to let her feet rest, and placed them neatly by the door. Adrian loosened his tie, then paused as if deciding whether to speak. "Elena," he said, "join me for a moment." She hesitated but followed him to the balcony overlooking the city. The night air was cool, brushing gently against her skin. From this height, the streets looked like glowing rivers of gold threading between buildings. "It can be overwhelming," Adrian said quietly, looking out over the city. The attention, the expectations, the eyes watching every move. Elena turned toward him. "It was intimidating at first, but I kept reminding myself that I had a purpose there. That helped." He nodded slightly, as if her words surprised him. For a moment they stood side by side in silence. The air felt calm, almost fragile. Then, unexpectedly, Adrian spoke again, his voice quieter than she had ever heard it. "People assume my position is built on strength, but strength and isolation look similar from the outside." Elena studied him, unsure if he meant to reveal something so personal. He continued, "Trust is not something I give easily. It has consequences. The last time I trusted someone, it cost me more than you may understand." His jaw tightened just slightly, the only sign of the memory behind his words. Elena lowered her gaze. "I may not know what happened, but I understand what it feels like to lose trust in the world." That made him look at her fully. The city lights reflected softly in her eyes, and for the first time, he seemed to see not just the role she played, but the woman beneath it. A woman shaped by hardship, not ambition. A woman who knew how to survive without taking advantage of anyone. "Elena," he said, "you have handled an impossible situation with dignity. Most would have tried to use this arrangement for themselves." "I am not here to take anything from you," she replied softly. "I just want to help my mother, and to keep my word." Her sincerity lingered in the air like a quiet truth. Adrian exhaled, a slow breath that softened something in his posture. "You are different from what I expected." Elena felt her heart shift, almost painfully. She had come into this contract prepared to protect herself, to keep every feeling tightly guarded. But standing here under the city lights, hearing the unexpected honesty in his voice, she felt the first crack in the walls she had built, and she sensed that the walls around him were cracking too. 6 months had once felt like a long time. Now, it felt dangerously short. The next morning began with an unusual brightness spilling across the penthouse floor. But the calm did not last long. Elena had just finished arranging the small breakfast table when Lydia hurried into the room, her expression sharper than usual. "Ms. Ward," Lydia said, her voice steady but tense, "there is a situation." Before Elena could ask what she meant, Adrian appeared behind Lydia, holding his phone in one hand. His jaw was set, his movements clipped with controlled urgency. Something had happened, something serious. Adrian turned the screen toward Elena. Dozens of notifications filled the display. Headlines, photos, speculations. A gossip site had posted a story titled, "Who is Elena Ward? Anonymous maid or paid actress for Adrian Hale's marriage drama?" Elena's breath caught. The article contained photos of her entering the gala, screenshots of her hospital visits, even speculation about her financial struggles. It painted her as a woman hired to deceive the public for Adrian's benefit. "I did not expect this leak so early," Adrian said, his voice low. Elena felt her throat tighten painfully. "How did they get these details? My mother, the hospital. None of this is public." "Someone gave them the information," Adrian replied. "Someone with access. Someone who wants to damage me." The implication hung heavily between them. Before she could respond, another alert appeared on his phone. It was a message from the chairman of his board. "They want to meet this afternoon," Adrian muttered, reading the message. "They expect an explanation." The pressure in the room grew heavier. Lydia stepped forward, her tone firm. "There is more. Reporters are already gathering outside the building. They will not hesitate to harass Ms. Ward if she steps outside." Elena felt her pulse race. "I never asked for this attention. I never wanted." "You are not at fault," Adrian said sharply, cutting her off. The intensity in his voice made her look up. "Do not let anyone make you believe otherwise." But the storm was only beginning. As the afternoon approached, Another message arrived, a photo attachment. It was sent anonymously to Adrian's private email. The photo showed Adrian and Elena standing on the balcony the night before, the city behind them glowing softly. The angle suggested someone had taken it from a distance, watching them, listening to them, waiting. Elena's chest constricted. Someone is following us? Someone wants this arrangement to fail, Adrian said. Then Lydia added quietly, there is speculation that your former fiancé may be involved. The timing aligns with her recent dispute with the board. Adrian's eyes darkened. Betrayal was a language he understood far too well. Elena stepped back, her voice trembling. Mr. Hale, this was not part of the agreement. I did not know it would affect your career. I am only making things worse for you. Adrian faced her fully. You are not the problem. The problem is the people who want to weaponize your presence. The words should have comforted her, but instead they deepened her fear. Because now, the danger was not just public humiliation. It was the possibility that Adrian might choose to end the contract to protect himself. And if that happened, everything she had risked, her pride, her mother's treatment, her entire future, would collapse. For the first time since signing the contract, Elena realized something terrifying. This arrangement could destroy both of them, but she was the one easiest to sacrifice. By early afternoon, the tension inside the penthouse felt suffocating. Adrian prepared for the emergency board meeting, while Elena remained in the guest suite, pacing the floor as if trying to outrun the panic building inside her chest. Every notification on her phone felt like a threat. Every headline called her a fraud, a gold digger, a hired actress. She could not escape the weight of those words, even though none of them were true. When Lydia entered the suite, she spoke gently. Ms. Ward, Mr. Hale is meeting the board now. They expect an immediate clarification about your marriage. Elena nodded, her throat too tight to respond. Lydia hesitated before adding, they may pressure him to dissolve the arrangement. The words hit with a sting she did not expect. If that is what he needs to do, then he should do it, Elena whispered. I never wanted to be a burden. Lydia looked at her with an expression that held something close to sympathy. Mr. Hale will decide for himself. Downstairs, the boardroom was filled with tension thick enough to touch. Adrian entered, calm but unyielding. The board members were already holding printed copies of the article, their faces tight with accusation. One of them, Mr. Durant, spoke first. Adrian, your personal decisions are causing reputational damage. Investors are calling. They are concerned that this marriage is fabricated. Another added, if this is a contractual arrangement, you must end it. The company cannot afford a scandal. Adrian placed his hands on the table, steady and firm. I will address this publicly, but I will not end anything based on rumors or manipulation. Adrian, Mr. Durant said sharply, this woman is hurting your credibility. You need to make a strategic decision. Adrian straightened. His voice was low but carried through the room with relentless force. The only strategic decision I will make is to protect the person who has been dragged into this mess without fault. Elena Ward has done nothing to deserve these attacks. The board can question me, but you will not treat her as collateral damage. The room fell silent. It was the first time they had seen Adrian defend anyone so fiercely. After the heated meeting, Adrian headed directly for the press conference that had been arranged within the hour. Journalists crowded the lobby, cameras already flashing as he approached the podium. The tension crackled like static in the air. Elena watched the live stream from her suite, her hands pressed against her mouth. Adrian began. There has been speculation regarding my marriage to Elena Ward. Let me make something absolutely clear. Any fault or misjudgment lies with me, not with her. The room stirred, reporters leaning forward. Yes, Adrian continued. The marriage began as a private arrangement. It was intended to protect personal and corporate interests during a transitional period. But Elena never acted with deception. She did not seek attention, money, or influence. The only person who manipulated this situation was me. Elena felt tears sting her eyes. He was taking the blame, publicly, willingly. He went on. If anyone should be questioned, it is me, not Elena. I will answer for my choices. She deserves privacy, respect, and protection from this chaos. The reporters erupted with questions, but Adrian stepped away from the podium, refusing to entertain anything further. Minutes later, the door to her suite opened quietly. Adrian entered, still wearing the weight of the day on his shoulders. Elena rose immediately, her voice trembling. "Mr. Hale, you should not have done that for me." Adrian looked at her, his expression softer than she had ever seen. "Elena, I told you once that you were not the problem. Today, I needed everyone else to hear it." She shook her head, eyes filling. "They will blame you for defending me." "Then let them," he said. "I will not stand by while you suffer for a choice I made." He reached into his jacket, pulled out the contract they had both signed, and held it between them. Without hesitation, Adrian tore it in half. The sound was small, but it echoed like a thunderclap in Elena's heart. "No more rules, no more conditions," he said quietly. "If you stay, it will never be because of a contract. It will be because you choose to stay." Elena stared at the torn pages, her breath unsteady. For the first time, she felt the foundation beneath them shift into something real. Something neither of them had planned. Something neither of them could deny anymore. For a long moment, neither Adrian nor Elena spoke. The torn contract lay between them like a quiet declaration, its pieces fluttering slightly in Adrian's hand. Elena felt the weight of everything that had happened settling around them. But for the first time since this ordeal began, the weight did not crush her. It felt lighter. It felt honest. "Elena," Adrian said, his voice steady, "I cannot force you to stay. Not now. Not ever. The decision is yours." She took a slow breath, her heart unsteady. "I stayed because of the contract," she admitted. "But somewhere along the way, it became more than that. I just did not know if I was allowed to feel it." He moved closer, his expression softening in a way she had never seen before. "You are allowed to feel anything, and so am I." The vulnerability in his words shook her. Adrian Hale, a man guarded by walls higher than the penthouse they lived in, was letting her see the truth behind them. He continued, "The board can question me. Investors can doubt me. The world can say whatever it wants. But I will not let fear decide my life again." Elena felt tears gather, not from sadness, but from the overwhelming relief of knowing that she was no longer standing alone in this. Weeks passed, and the storm surrounding the scandal slowly faded. Adrian addressed the concerns of the board with confidence and transparency, turning the narrative into one of accountability instead of deception. Surprisingly, the public responded with unexpected empathy. Many admired his willingness to protect someone with less power. Others respected his honesty. For Elena, the transformation was gentler but no less meaningful. She continued to learn the rhythms of Adrian's world, but now without pressure or expectation. Their days were quieter, filled with real conversations instead of rehearsed roles. Their nights were calmer, the silence between them no longer cold but comforting. One evening, about a month after the torn contract, Adrian invited Elena to the rooftop garden. She remembered her first days here, feeling small and overwhelmed by the life she had stepped into. But tonight, she felt steady. Adrian stood near the railing, holding a small velvet box. Her breath caught, but he spoke before she could react. "When we began this, everything was built on fear," he said. "Fear of betrayal, fear of losing control, fear of needing someone." He opened the box. Inside was a delicate ring, nothing extravagant, but beautiful in its simplicity. "This time," Adrian continued, "I want to begin with honesty, not a contract, not an arrangement, just truth." Elena felt her heart swell, the city lights reflecting softly in her eyes. "Adrian," she whispered. He stepped closer. "Elena Ward, will you stay with me? Not because of financial need, not because of a signed agreement, but because you choose this life, because you choose me." Tears slipped down her cheeks, warm against the cool night air. "Yes," she said, "I choose you, not because I have to, because I want to." Adrian slid the ring onto her finger, his touch steady and gentle. In that moment, everything that had begun as a desperate arrangement transformed into something real, something neither of them had expected when 6 months first appeared on the page of a contract. They stood together as the wind brushed past them, the city moving quietly below. The false marriage that began in ink had turned into a promise built on truth, and for the first time, Elena felt exactly where she belonged, by his side, not as a contract, not as a role, but as his partner in the life they would choose together.